Section 1.4, Introduction to Linear Equations. In this section, we're going to be looking at linear equations in more detail. So let's look at a few definitions first. The simplest mathematical model for relating two variables is a linear equation in two variables, y equals mx plus b. When we graph this equation, it's going to be a line, as we saw in the last section, and the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line is given by y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope and the b is the initial or starting value of the function whenever x is 0. We also call this b the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is at 0b, and the slope measures how steep a line is going to be, and we can find the slope by using the following definition. So the slope is the change in y divided by the change in x, and we also call it the rise over the run. So here we would have y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, where x2 minus x1 cannot be 0. So in the last section, we graphed lines by plotting points and using the x and y-intercept. Today, the slope and the y-intercept will be another way to graph linear equations. So first, let's look at finding the slope of the line that passes through the following points. Once we find the slope, we want to determine if the line is increasing or decreasing. So using this formula, we can find the slope. So these numbers x1, y1, x2, y2. And so the formula tells me that we're going to subtract y2 minus y1. So in my case, y2 is 5 and y1 is negative 2, divided by x2, which is negative 1, minus x1, which is 4. So 5 minus negative 2, we can make this into positive. 5 plus 2 is 7, and negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Okay, so my slope is negative 7/5. So if we want to graph this line, recall from the last lesson that we can graph the line using these 2 points. So we have negative 1 and 5 right here, and 4 and negative 2. So there's my point. So I'm going to draw my line. And if we're reading this graph from left to right, so from left to right, you can see that the graph is decreasing. So we say that the line is decreasing. Okay, let's look at letter B. So we can find the slope again. And you can call these points x1, y1, x2, y2. So for the slope, we have y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. So my slope is 4. Let's graph the points. So we have 3 and 2 and 4 and 6. So if we look at our line from left to right, we can see that the line is increasing. Okay, let's look at letter C. So first we'll find the slope. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is 2 minus y1, which is 2. X2 is 5 minus x1, which is 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. 5 minus 3 is 2. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Okay, so if we graph our line, we get 3, 2, and 5, 2. So you can see that our line is a horizontal line. And the last one, y2 is 5 minus y1, which is negative 2, divided by x2, which is 4 minus 4. So we get 7 divided by 0. We cannot divide by 0, so we say this is undefined. So our slope is undefined. So if we graph these points or plot these points, then we get 4 and negative 2 and 4 and 5. So you can see here that this line is going to be a vertical line. So remember that the slope defines how steep a line is. So if the line has no steepness, then it makes sense that the slope is 0. In the examples above, we saw if the line was increasing or decreasing. And so notice that when the line is decreasing, our slope is negative. If the line is increasing, the slope is positive. If you have a slope of 0, we got a horizontal line. If you have an undefined slope, then it's a vertical line. So y equals mx plus b is an increasing function if the slope is positive, and y equals mx plus b is a decreasing function if the slope is negative, and y equals mx plus b is a constant function if the slope is 0. So we can also use the rise over run to determine the slope. And so here we want to find the slope graphically using and determine if the line is increasing, decreasing, vertical, or horizontal. So we can have the points here is 0, 2, and this point is negative 2, 0. Okay, so one thing you can do is you can use the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, or we can use the rise over run. Okay, so I'll do it both ways for the first example. So x2 is 2, x1 is 0, x2 is 0, x1 is negative 2. So we get 2 over 2 is equal to 1. So my slope is equal to 1. Okay, so if I use the rise over run, if I was standing here and I'm trying to get to this point, I would have to go up how many units? So let me just write this here. So we would have to go up 2 units. So I'm going to write it as 2. And then I would have to go to the right 2 units. So 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1. So you can do it both ways, whatever way is easier for you. So my slope is 1. And this line, we can see that it's increasing. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So I always like to find points that are that we can easily recognize. And so this one here is negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 3. So if you want to use the formula, you can do that, or we can use the idea of rise over run. So if you're standing here, then you're going to need to go up 3 units. So that would be your rise. And then we're going to have to go left 1 unit. Since you're going left, we represent that with a negative 1. So my slope would be negative 3. So you might have a question like, what if you start at this point? Well, that's okay as well. If you start at this point, then you would have to go down 3 units. So we would represent that with a negative 3. And then you would have to go to the right 1 unit. So we get m is equal to negative 3. Okay, so this line is going to be decreasing. Okay, letter C. So for letter C, we have a horizontal line and it passes through -4, y equals -4. And so here we can see that the slope, since it's horizontal, we can say that the slope is 0. And over here, the slope, you have a vertical line. So remember that when the line is vertical, we say that the slope is undefined. So now we can use the idea of slope and y-intercept to graph a line. So the steps are identify and plot the y-intercept. And then we're going to use the slope to use the rise over run to plot a second point, then we graph. So for letter A, my y-intercept is 1 and my slope is 3/5. So remember that your slope is the number in front of x and your y-intercept is the b. And this is if the line is written in this form. Okay, so my y-intercept is at 1. So here, remember, yeah, this is an ordered pair, 0, 1. And then for the slope, we're going to say that the 3 is your rise and the 5 is your run. So from our y-intercept, we're going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to run to the right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since this is a line, all we need is 2 points to graph the line. Okay, so for the next one, we have y equals -2x minus 3. So my slope is -2 and my y-intercept is -3, which we can write as an ordered pair, 0, -3. So let's plot our y-intercept. And our slope is -2. We can write a 1 below it. And this would be your rise and your run. So from this point, we can go down 2, 1, 2, and to the right 1. So we can graph our line by connecting the points. Okay, so let's look at the next example. So notice here that this is not solved for y first, so that's the first thing we need to do. So we have 2x minus 7y equals 14. We're going to subtract 2x. So we have -7y is equal to -2x plus 14. Divide by -7. So y is equal to negative is positive. And 14 divided by -7 is -2. So my slope is 2/7 and my y-intercept is -2. So we first plot the y-intercept, which is -2. And then from here, we're going to rise 2 and run 7. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we graph our line. Okay, let's look at letter B. Again, this is one way to graph this. If you feel more comfortable using the point plotting system where you pick values for x and y, then you can do that as well. So here we have 3x minus 2y minus 6 equals 0. So let's add 2y on both sides. Divide by 2. So we get 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. -6 divided by 2 is -3 equals 2y. So my slope is 3/2 and my y-intercept is -3. So we're going to plot the -3. Then we're going to go up 3 units and to the right 2. Connect our points. And that would be our line. Example 5, y equals -3. We know that's a horizontal line. Since it's a horizontal line, it's going to pass through y equals -3. And that would be our graph. For example B, x equals 4 is a vertical line passing through x equals 4. So we draw our line.